All right, I think I can start reading anyway. TV 79, we're going to go on the record. Bonnie?
We are on the record.
Good evening, happy late New Year. It's the first Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of 2019. It is Tuesday, January 8th. We're in room 206 at Town Hall. We're going to start with a public hearing. Actually, we're going to have to amend the agenda. I'll let you know. But Kev, why don't you just read the title of the first one?
So number one, continuation public hearing regarding site plan application number 261A, Pemberton 16 LLC, 77 Leroy Avenue, to be immediately continued to January 29th, 2019.
Okay.
We go on to number two.
Is that, yes, that's the one, right?
Coastal site plan review number 336, flood damage prevention application number 79A, land filling regrading application number 446, Jessee and Abigail Hord. Number 3, Siwanoy Drive, proposal to construct additions to an existing single-family residence, construct a new pool, patios, a new driveway, and perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The 2.4-acre subject property is located on the south side of Siwanoy Drive, approximately 300 feet west of its intersection with Seals Road, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 66 as lot number 74 in the R1 zone.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Jeremy, you want to say anything before our applicant gets
Sure.
started?
You have the application materials in your packet. This is a proposal to add a pool, gazebo, additions to the house, which would be a pool house. The work is in the coastal area, the flood zone, and there's a small amount of regrading associated with the project.
And there's an interesting aspect to this property, if you...
Sure.
Just
Right.
one small interesting aspect.
Right, if you've been down there, the driveway comes in, Siwanoy is when you come down Searles Road, you make a right turn, and the driveway comes in off Searles. And recently, the applicant realized that they own a piece of Siwanoy Road, and they combined that non-buildable piece with their existing parcel such that they would not need a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it was within the past few months that they reconfigured the application such that they did not need a variance, but they still need planning and zoning approval, and they're here before you tonight to do that work on the subject property.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Paolo Vicente. I'm architect for Abigail and Jessee Hord.
Could you spell your name for me, please?
Sure. First name's Paulo, last name's Vicente.
Thank you very much.
As Jeremy mentioned, our proposal is to take up an existing sports court that's on the east side of the property, put in a small 22 by 22 square pool, again, all within the existing setback line, an open gazebo to the northeast side of the property, that kind of opens onto the pool. We're also doing a small addition to the house down towards the southern end of the property that'll enclose a small bath changing room. And there's some existing oil tanks that sit outside the house. We're going to enclose those and raise those above the base flood elevation. All the new additions will be designed a foot above the base flood elevation, designed to withstand, be anchored to resist flood. We have, Tim from Race has looked at the pool design since it is in the flood zone to make it engineered and compliant to that with flood vents. There's associated paving, a small terrace with the pool. We're also repaving the driveway associated with this application. I do want to rescind a portion of the application, which is the new gate and piers up at the property line. There's still some debate between the neighbor and they working out the exact location of that, so we'll come back with that application once they've kind of worked out where those piers and gate fall.
Do we have to look at that?
I think it depends on the final design, but as of now, it's not part of the application.
Okay.
But it could come back to the commission as a very minor amendment
To the site plan?
to the site, to the coastal site plan.
Oh, to the coastal site plan, okay.
Is the gate between 1 and 3 is what we're talking about? At the end of the driveway, it's only 2 houses on the street.
Right, it was- Yes.
Yes.
I'm just saying approve it now.
The
Because they're not in agreement.
We've had septic tested, that's been approved by the health, and we have a B100 that was submitted as well by McCord. There's also a plan that's included in your packet, which is a landscape buffer at the southeast end of the property, which gives the pool a little buffer from the road on Cyril's Road. So if you're looking back towards Cyril's Road.
If you could just give a little more detail on the regrading, it's pretty minor, if I
It's
understand.
very minor regrading just around the pool. It's virtually flat. There's a
Okay.
slight slope, but just really around that pool to
Okay, just make
integrate
it
the
flush.
Exactly.
Can you tell me what the net, either building area and/or impervious surface will be post?
Do you have that here?
I'm assuming it's, if you're taking out a sports court, it's gonna end up being somewhat even.
Right.
If you could introduce yourself, sir, I'm sorry.
Harry Rochel with McCord Engineering. You are right.
Did you get the last name?
I
I'm
did
sorry.
not.
Sorry, if you could repeat your name
I'm sorry, I
again.
was
Yep.
trying to do something.
No problem. Harry Rochel, McCord Engineering.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Rocheville.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're correct that it is pretty much a net difference, but we did design our stormwater system to, for the increase, or for the slight increase in impervious area added, there was only 102 square feet added, which equaled the water quality volume required of only 9 cubic feet, which was, our detention system, we designed it for peak flow, so it was well over the 9 cubic feet required.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Anybody from the audience like to speak to this application? Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see you, sir. Yeah, come on up, yeah. My apologies. You're behind the,
No problem. My name is Bill Lenich. I live at 1 Siwanoy Road,
Can you spell your last name, please?
Lenich.
Thank you.
Just a specific concern about the project that my family has, and it pertains to the pillars and the gate, which they just mentioned were rescinded. But while I'm here, I might as well go on the record and state my concerns before the board, if that's okay.
yeah, that's great.
As they said, we share Siwanoy Drive, which is a really narrow road, if it can be called that. Our driveway and their driveway, where we noticed that they proposed to put the pillars and the gates, had two effects, really. The first being on the potential value and use of my lawn as it currently is now, but more importantly, on the traffic on Siwanoy Road. As it is currently designed, it's so narrow that there's really only space for one car to go up or down at a time. If there were ever to be a gate in the future which would prevent a car from going down the road, its only option would be to either reverse all the way back out Siwanoy Road to Searles, which is less than ideal, or what's more likely, to use my driveway as a backing up point to then turn around and exit forwards. I have 3 young kids under the age of 8. They play in the driveway constantly. The thought of cars and trucks using my driveway as a reverse in to turn out point is fairly concerning. I brought some pictures of the area just for the board to consider if they would, just highlighting where the pillar may not be, the road, how wide it is or isn't, where my driveway resides in regard to it. And I just ask that the board consider that in their determination now or in the future of any application for a gate and/or
So
building.
unfortunately, we don't have a plan to kind of look at.
Right.
And so we'll definitely, this is definitely in the record, we understand your concerns, but
Yeah.
would you mind just keeping an eye out? Or, I'm sure you're gonna have conversations with your
We are
new
having
neighbor. Okay.
conversations, we're gonna work towards a
Okay.
solution, hopefully it's good for everybody.
Okay.
But I just wanted to
Yeah.
take this opportunity to communicate it to you.
Yeah.
I just learned of this a couple days ago, so I'm in catch-up mode a little bit as well. And hopefully we can or won't talk again in the future.
Okay, and in your estimation, what's the gate for? I mean,
It's not my gate, I don't know.
I'm just trying to understand how it,
So
How-
when I went down, I had to do that kind of anyway. So do you find that that's happening anyway?
I don't find it's happening anyway. Anyone who's coming down Siwanoy should
Like,
either
let's
be,
say I got lost, but I didn't.
if you got lost, if
I
you got,
reversed out of the driveway.
Right,
Do you know
if
what I
you-
mean?
if you got lost,
Commission's-
and that, it is unfortunate, it does happen from time to time. I think there's a significant difference between the occasional lost driver that doesn't choose to drive into the Hord's driveway and turn around and come back out, and a gate that's explicitly there to stop traffic.
Okay, got it.
Can I ask you a question of the engineer? Do you have one of those plans on a full size? What's on the back of that thing?
Yeah. The full
No, you need to go up to
Yeah.
the microphone, please, and speak.
We have Seymour's surveys. We're trying to see if it's,
This is my board, but it's based on Seymour's survey.
okay, so let's just get on the same page for a second. Can you show me the property line that's all the way to the east? Okay, got it.
The Hords actually own the entire Siwanoy Drive up to Cyril's, but we
Okay.
just combined this portion of it.
Okay,
So
so
how do
so
they-
the portion, hold on one second, please. So the portion that's shared goes from the property line that you just indicated to where?
All the way out to Cyril's Road.
Okay, then, in your guesstimation, the last conversation, where is this gate supposed to be?
The gate is within the Hords property, about 15 feet in that eastern property.
Okay, then where's the curb cut into the Hord's property?
Where is it?
Yeah,
Well, currently, the
road.
Siwanoy just keeps going. The curb cut is, yeah, it's really all the way
The
up.
entrance of
Wilder,
Wilder.
please, and
he knows, Wilder knows better, it's the first of the year, maybe we forgot. I forgot. All right, so, sir, what you're stating is that the person's gonna hit the gate, which is at that spot, back up, I don't know, say 10 yards, button hook back into your driveway.
The gate as it was designed initially, and as I understand it, is literally right in front of my front door. My driveway, if you're standing on my front door, my driveway is to the left, the gate's straight ahead. So
But
if you-
so guys, hold on a second. Please, I understand that, but we have proper process. First of all, can I just put a point of order? We're talking about a gate that's not even in this application yet. So can we hold off until they put the proposal in front of us? It might not even exist. I guess that's what I'm kind of getting at. We have a general understanding, definitely understand your concerns, but the gate might not even be proposed ultimately. So let's not spend too much time about it right
We
now.
put the gate.
Hold on, Wally, you haven't even,
You introduce yourself.
I didn't invite him to talk yet. So I want to make the point,
One of the-
yes. First of all, one at a time, everybody. You have to be invited to speak at the microphone, introduce yourselves. This isn't the first rodeo. But to our board right now, we're talking about something that's not part of the application. So let's not really, I totally understand you're here, appreciate your concerns, but it might totally change or might not even exist. So let's not hone in on this. Let's focus on we're being presented at. Mr. Gleason,
Yes.
can you tell us who you are and why you're here?
Gleason, representing the applicants. I got involved in this recently. At my suggestion, Jessee Hord has tried to meet with the neighbors. They've talked about it. The concern about the backup arose over the weekend. We've looked at adjusting it. We couldn't come to an agreement, which is why we pulled the gates, so that we have an opportunity to discuss it, and if we're not able to reach agreement, we will come back to you.
Perfect, thank you.
One quick question,
Yeah.
not about the gate. The road, you're saying that the applicant owns the road
Yep.
all the way, so how does Mr. Lennox
He
get
has
to his
an
home?
easement. So he's granted an easement of access to his landlocked property.
Okay.
Got it, okay, perfect. You're good, sir? Thank you. Wilder, you're okay?
I'm good.
Yeah, okay.
What we're really looking for, Sue, just that, is we're looking to get approval so we can move forward with the construction project, and then we'll come back to you if we decide, well, if we're not able to deal with the gate.
Understood, thank you. Another person from the audience like to speak.
Hi, Jim Solberg. I've appeared in front of this commission in the past on some properties in Tokenique. I was formerly the president of the Tokenique Association. I stepped down from that. I'm still on the board. I oversee the development committee, and I have just a few comments I'd like to offer.
Go ahead.
So we don't own Siwanoy Road. The Tokenique Association does not. So we don't really have a play in that. But I do think it's important for the commission to understand that since I last appeared, we've continued to strengthen the requirements that we have for development that goes on in Tokenique, where activities related to development and construction traverse Tokenique Association roads. So in order to access Siwanoy, vehicles will have to go over Searles Road. And what we have established and communicated to all property owners is that in order for a project to proceed, if they want vehicles to come over our roads, they need to reach agreement with the Tokenique Association with respect to whether there's a deposit required to protect our roads and whether they're going to adhere to all the rules and regulations of the association. And in addition, we look to have an agreement with the contractor that they too will adhere to those rules and regulations. We've had several examples of that already within the association. A lawyer's involved, they've accepted it. It would apply here, would apply at the discussion we have later on 8 South Trail. But I just thought the commission should be aware. I'm not asking you to do anything or affirm anything, but I thought you should be aware that that's the positions we're now taking.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Which is not undifferent than any other project that happens in the association, which is not different than any other project within the association.
That is correct. There was a project that's underway that came in front of the commission before, but they're accessing their property off of Old Farm, which is a town road, not an association road.
I got it.
Got it.
Okay, I know that, I get it.
Any other questions? Anybody else out there? Can I get a motion to close this public hearing?
Close?
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Thank you. So now we got to amend the agenda, as I understand it, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the second item, the flood damage prevention application number 387, land filling regrading application number 445, Brian and Daria Chase, 10 Holly Lane. We're going to address that a little later this evening.
Correct,
we have
about 9 o'clock.
About 9 o'clock, just to fit in the applicant. So if you're here to hear that, we will definitely get to it this evening, hopefully in about 40 minutes. So now we go in the general meeting.
Number 4 on the agenda is election of officers.
All right, so hopefully it's pretty easy. We got to nominate, we got to elect a secretary, vice chair, and chair.
I missed that one. I noticed that.
And I didn't hear anybody dying to have any changes, so I'm going to just jump into this and nominate Kevin for secretary. Can I get a
Second that.
all in favor?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
All
yeah.
right,
I'll nominate Steve for vice chair.
second? I got the
Second.
second.
Yeah.
All in favor? All right,
And I would nominate John for chairman.
Second?
all in favor?
All in favor?
I can, you can vote for yourself, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Amendment of subdivision number 366, Hodenfeld, 5 Little Brook Road. Request to amend subdivision approval to allow parcel 1 to be annexed to 81 Raymond Street, shown on Assessor's Map number 36 as lot number 68, rather than 5 Little Brook Road, shown on Assessor's Map number 36 as lot number 67.
You have in your packets a proposal from Mrs. Hodenfeld, who's the property owner at 5 Little Brook Road. She's included in your packet a copy of the, I believe it was 1964 subdivision approval for the whole Little Brook Road subdivision coming in off Raymond Street. At the time, the Planning and Zoning Commission required that a small parcel be, I'll call it an open space parcel if you want, be attached to 5 Little Brook, and it's been that way ever since. Ms. Hodenfeld, when you look at the shape of the parcel, she said it doesn't make any sense to have it with my parcel. It makes much more sense to have it with the 81 Raymond Street parcel, which is at the northwest corner of Raymond Street and Little Brook Road. So she's asked the commission to modify its mid-1960s approval, which specifically required that that small piece, which is a non-buildable piece, go with her lot, and she's requesting that you require that it go with 81 Raymond Street.
And is 81 Raymond Street okay with that?
She has reached out to them, and last I spoke to Ms. Hodenfeld, if they're not okay with it, Ms. Hodenfeld will keep it. If they are okay with it, Ms. Hodenfeld will prepare the required Mylar, hire a surveyor, file it in the land records, change the deeds, etc.
Will you verify via letter or something before the Mylar is filed?
Absolutely.
Okay, can we make that a contingent
Right.
on this?
Contingent on 81
Yeah,
Raymond Street.
approval of the owner of 81 Raymond Street. A
Accepting
written
it.
approval, yeah.
Right, so
5 Little Brook Road's on the market for sale.
it is, Ms. Hodenfeld is looking to sell it and has realized that now would be a good time to proceed with that,
Clean it up, right?
clean it up such that the new owner knows what they're buying. And in fact, I did speak to the, let's call it the attorney for the potential buyer and explain what was going on. She's fun.
Do you know if it's a taxable parcel, is it assessed?
It is, she included in her package the taxes she pays annually on that small piece of land.
She wants to send a taxes of
50, I believe 5966, yeah. And it makes sense from a contiguous standpoint.
Yeah, you just look at it and
It's
say,
just wild.
I don't know
yeah.
why the commission did it.
There's no, like, monies being transferred for this transfer?
I believe she's trying to come to some financial arrangement with 81 Raymond.
I mean, no one gives land away for nothing, do they?
Yeah.
She's sure she's gonna lower the taxes for her house.
Yeah.
5966.
59.66.
Okay.
A piece
Oh,
of land.
there's one at a time, please.
So, anyway,
So
pretty,
I
pretty,
suggested to her it would be prudent for her to come to the commission, get the commission's okay, and if the owner of 81 Raymond says no, that's,
so the approval is contingent on written approval from the owner of 81. That's my proposal. Does everybody agree?
I agree, yes.
Can I get a motion to approve the,
Jennifer motions to approve, and I will second.
all in favor? Okay.
In favor, yes.
Next.
Number 6, amendment of business site plan number 124F, Dolcetti, Brooks Brothers, 975, 987 Boston Post Road, CBD Zone, request to allow the finished basement space within Brooks Brothers without providing open space plaza area. The past approval required that associated open space plaza area be provided, but a 2018 zoning regulation amendment eliminated that requirement.
Okay, so.
you may recall that there was recent zoning regulation amendment that came before the commission regarding open space requirements in the CBD relative to basements. And that was subsequently withdrawn. The commission then put forth a proposal, which eventually got adopted, which says that basements,
Wait, no. Actually, it was a site plan amendment first that
right,
got
you're right,
withdrawn.
site plan amendment got withdrawn.
Then we
Commission-
requested that they come forward with a regulation change, amendment proposal.
There was a regulation amendment proposal,
We-
which was adopted.
Adopted, and that eliminated the need for open space for a finished basement.
As long as you could prove the parking is sufficient.
Okay.
And at the time, it was acknowledged that the issue is relative to Brooks Brothers, which has been in downtown for many years now, and that just by changing the regulations would not eliminate the requirement for them to return to the commission to their original site plan for those parcels to be amended, because the original site plan approved by the commission required open space, or public plaza, if you will. And so until that plan gets amended by the commission, there is a requirement to file a public plaza document in the land records. Attorney Amy Sushins is here tonight on behalf of the Dolcettis and Brooks Brothers to answer any questions you have about this request, which is outlined in her
Yeah, the
application
brief was
materials,
very thorough, so.
to amend the site plan originally approved by the commission, I believe it was in 2006, to eliminate the requirement for public plaza space to accommodate the finished basement space in the Brooks Brothers building.
Right, and just to recall, how, do you remember what the vote was, or for that regulation amendment, for those commission, or?
I believe it was 5-1,
Okay.
if I recall.
Yeah, okay. So we as a commission deemed the regulations, amendment and regulations, so that, I think it was the sense of the commission, most of the commission, or the sense of the commission, that because you're not building up, we did not need, if you will, a pocket park or any open space when it came to future development of basements. But if you get a third story, you still have to provide some open space. So bottom line is, Jeremy said, this is just an amendment now to an existing site plan to eliminate the need for open space, which is now consistent with the new regulation.
New regulation, and as Amy notes on pages 3 and 4 of her application, they request to eliminate conditions in the prior approval because no open space public plaza is required, and conclude that the existing on-site parking, which is a joint parking agreement, satisfies the requirement for off-street parking for the finished basement space.
And you agree with that, the parking issue, the parking?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
for many years, and
Yeah.
it seems to be sufficient. Again, to me, the commission's all familiar with
Go
that
ahead.
Brooks Brothers shared parking.
Now, I don't mean to open up a can of worms, but Dolcetti does not own the building, right? So how do they
Delcetti
make?
owns the land,
Correct.
of which the plaza space was to be put on.
Whoever runs with the land, not with the building, because you're changing something to the building requirement that's not owned by Dolcetti.
We're eliminating the requirement for the Dolcettis to put an easement on their property. So Brooks Brothers, they're fine with everything the way it is.
Brooks Brothers is a tenant.
Right, the tenant is A-OK. The basement space has already been approved. The Dolcettis are here to eliminate one of the requirements from the 2006 approval
On their land.
on their land.
So you don't need the building owner's approval.
No. I need the landowner's
Has nothing to
approval.
do with the building, it's the land.
Okay.
That's
As
gonna
long as
be
you say
impacted,
it's
right?
legal.
Yeah. All right. So with that clarification, anybody, any others?
It's simple site
Yeah.
plan, the commission doesn't need to hold a hearing.
Yeah.
You can just,
I would like to make a motion to approve this item as submitted.
A second.
All in favor?
let's see, who's reading?
One against?
Jim Rand again, 5-1.
You okay, Kevin?
Do you want to comment or anything? or-
Nope, so the amendment is approved. We'll send Amy and Mr. Dolcetti a letter confirming so.
Perfect. Thank you. And this was a long, I think about a year process now.
It was January 23rd last year.
Perfect. Oh, less than a year. That's better. So, no, thanks for working with us, and we, I think, ended up at the right spot. Go ahead.
Number 7, amendment of business site plan number 164A, Darien Green, Darien Crossing, 320 Boston Post Road, OB Zone, request to modify the ground floor entry-level space to convert the shipping receiving room into a cafe for building tenants and to make the finished storage room a shared conference room for all the tenants in the building.
There are two proposals before you from Nick Fletcher, who's in the back of the room. The first one is 320 Boston Post Road, which has the green marker on it. You may recall that these two buildings are the Darien Green, which have become newly called Darien Crossing. And the two office buildings are now under renovation. But as Nick has been working with our department for a few months now on the issue of, if you've been there, the first floor at grade is kind of a foyer entry area, and then there's 2 stories above it. As you know, in this zone, it only allows basically two floors of finished space, although the commission is thinking about and considering the possibility of, within the next few months, modifying the regulations to allow 3 full stories. But until then, it's a 2-story finished requirement. When these projects were approved, they did allow some entry foyer space to be finished. So when you walk in, it's finished space, it looks nice. And you can, if you read through the 320 letter, it does talk about prior approvals for some ground floor finished space. As Nick and his team are finishing and redoing, and you can see from the pictures, totally renovating this first floor space, Nick has asked that he be allowed to convert some of that finished space to different types of finished space. And we've said, well, that's kind of different than what got approved previously by the commission. Got to go back to the commission for that to be allowed in each of the buildings. And so Nick's written 2 separate letters, one for 320 ground floor with the photographs showing what's there now and a description of what he wishes to do with the space. Again, their goal is to bring this up in class, if you will, and to rent this out to various office tenants in the very near future. Very exciting. You can probably see new landscaping going in.
Built to a new building color, too.
Yep, a lot going on
Change
over
the
there.
color
It's
of the
very,
building.
it's going to be very good. So the first request is regarding 320 Boston Post Road, which is to convert the shipping receiving room into a cafe and make the finished storage room a shared conference room, which would allow office tenants to have a shared conference room.
We don't expect this to increase the intensity of use of any of that property, right?
That's
And your
correct.
definition of finished, whether it's a conference room or a mail room,
Correct.
whatever.
It's not being used by outside.
I think it's a.
It's not a restaurant like
definitely
people are
just an
coming.
improvement without a intensity
Alright.
issue.
Can I get, I guess we should do these
Vote on it
separately?
Yes.
Okay, so the
Which
first,
one's closer to the side street, which is called Old
320.
Kingston?
320 is
right?
across from Birch
Three,
Road.
330 is closer to the Old Kings, near Rory's,
Which one's next to Duchess?
320.
all right, so which, I'm lost now.
320 is the first one.
Okay, so
A
can I get
motion
a
to approve the proposed renovation of 320?
second? Oh, I can't second. I'm sorry. Can I get a second? All in favor?
Okay.
I got carried away from that last meeting.
Motion to approve 330.
330 is similar. The letter, the photographs,
Yeah,
same
yeah,
concept.
exactly.
Voting.
Approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cunningham, Ram.
6-0.
Number 8.
Thanks,
Just, Jeremy, just scream when you want me to do Holly Lane, okay?
Yep.
Number 8, deliberations, possible decisions regarding following hearings closed in November 2018. Proposed amendments to Darien zoning regulations, COZR number 8, 2018, put forth by the Spring Grove Cemetery Association. Proposal to amend sections 404-C and 405 of the Darien zoning regulations to delete the second sentence of 404-C, referencing a columbarium as a normal church accessory use, and add a new subsection G to section 405 accessory use requiring special permits to include a columbarium located on church grounds or on the grounds of a cemetery operated by a cemetery association as defined in section 19A-2096 of the Connecticut General Statutes, and use solely contain the remains of deceased persons who have been cremated.
Very,
Could you
very,
refresh my memory on this one?
This is, Bruce Hill was present on behalf of the Cemetery Association, and he explained that the regs currently only allow columbarium, which is places to put the ashes, associated with churches. So you have a situation where the cemetery wants to have such a thing, but the regs technically say it can only be associated with the church. So what Bruce has said is, let's make it separate, and it would be very clear that in the future, if the cemetery wishes to do it, they would just come in with a special permit application to allow them to do such.
I think it had to do with the
Church
church,
and
Roman
two-step
Catholic churches
process.
used to own
Yes.
cemeteries.
So it's not an issue of like all of a sudden we're gonna have all these hideous
No.
structures
If
in the
you
middle
look
of the
at,
cemetery, right?
There's very few cemeteries in town.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, have you been to
St.
Buenos
John-
Aires?
St.
Have you
St.
seen the
John's
big
Cemetery has one. When you go in the front door of St. John's, there's a columbarium. where
I don't know if I'd call it a hideous structure. Just-
There's a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a building, you walk in.
Large
that's
stone
it.
structures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's,
Have you-
everything's by special permit, so you didn't get a chance to look at it.
I don't think you're going to see it.
So they want to build one inside Spring Grove.
Okay.
That's what we do.
Anybody have any other questions regarding this draft resolution?
Looks pretty clean to me.
Yeah. Can I get a motion to approve as submitted?
So move.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? And I, just for the record, I joined this one late, I believe, or I definitely caught up on TV, so, okay.
Number 10, special permit
6-0.
application number, sorry, Jeremy, number 303, VO2 Max 1 LLC, DBA Orange Theory Fitness, 364, 370 Boston Post Road, proposal to establish a personal service fitness studio used within a portion of the floor space of 364, 370 Boston Post Road.
So we had to look at it because it's a personal service business.
Personal service use in the DB2 zone. You may recall one of the issues here was relative to the parking, and the applicant explained at the public hearing that he's really early morning, late evening, that although he's only taking half the building, that in a very busy time, he will use more of the parking, but then Nick Fletcher of the adjacent office building said, we're working on an agreement which would allow overflow parking to use potentially the Darien Crossing parking lot.
And he was hoping that some of that use would be
Agree.
complementary to the tenants of 320, 330.
Sure, I'm sure it will be a great selling point to work next door to.
And there's that parking area
Skip
that's,
639, 693?
Right.
that fronts on the post road, that's dead space now, that
That's-
post 53.
That's perfect spot for someone to park and work out after work. So you're right, Steve.
And Nick said he wasn't gonna ticket anybody.
All right.
Looks pretty clean to me.
Yeah, can I get a motion to approve as submitted?
Motion to approve is submitted?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
All right.
And then I went out of order, apologies. Number 9, business site plan application number 222A RF1 LLC proposal to add construction of addition to the second floor of the existing building at the front of the site, renovate the existing barn for residential parking and storage, and reconfigure the parking lot behind the front building to provide additional parking and to perform related site development activities.
This was Mr. Fletcher's building again.
Yes.
It's got a busy night tonight.
Waiting for us to meet.
You may recall, this is the commercial, I'll call it Victorian-looking building, if you will, with the barn in the middle of the property, 2 small houses in the back, and they were looking to make some minor additions and alterations to the, I'll call it the front building, I think that's what we called it in the draft resolution. The front commercial building, we tried to distinguish that from the other buildings to be as clear as possible. But it's a straightforward resolution, again confirming that the barn can only be used for parking and residential storage, which is what the ZBA said as part of their decision, which is referenced in finding number 2. And I will note that there's a typo on page 4, which I realized. The completion date should be January 2020.
They had to finish it by tomorrow?
Yeah, it'll be a busy night.
Damn.
With that minor amendment, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
So take it directly to the barn and come back.
Skipping down now to 11, coastal site plan review, number 335, flood damage prevention application number 386, land filling and regrading application number 444, Michael and Elizabeth Gosk, 28 Swiss Lane, proposal to build a new house in generally the same location as the previous residence, with a new gravel driveway, patios, and renovated pool, with associated regrading and to perform related site development activities within regulated areas.
You may recall that this is the now vacant property, and they're looking to put the house at the top of the, let's see, the top elevation on the property. There's a little bit of ledge, and that they're going to want to get rid of. And I believe in the resolution we talked about, that was talked about at the hearing, Keith Simpson, the landscape architect, talked about possibly hole ramming, or it was either him or Neil House, maybe the architect. Condition C is included, the commission's requiring, and again, this is something we wanted to run by you, that blasting be used instead of hole ramming to limit the duration and impact, potential impact to the neighbors. Wanted to bring that condition to your attention, and similarly G2, which talks about a blasting permit. So wanted to make sure that that was okay with the commission.
What we talking about?
Yep. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Not hearing none, can I get a motion to approve as submitted?
One second.
All in favor?
Okay. That's a great.
Number 12, land filling or grading application number 421B, Joseph Pagliaro, 8 South Trail, proposal to raise then construct a portion of the existing residence on the property and to construct 2 new additions or grade portions of the rear yard, reconfigure the existing driveway to reduce its slope, and construct a new subsurface sewage disposal system and stormwater management system.
It's a straightforward resolution. You may recall that that property, one of the unique features of the application is to extend the driveway so it's less steep. There's still a significant amount of ledge on the 8th South Trail property. And so there's going to be a significant amount of tree removal, some blasting, and then the additions and alterations to the house are proposed.
And this one's actually on a corner, right?
It is the corner of, I believe it's Arrowhead Way and South
Yeah,
Trail.
It doesn't say that on our thing, but it's on a corner.
Right.
How come that president guy's not here?
Oh, yes, you're right, Jim.
Intersection with Arrowhead Way.
Property location.
But
So,
anyhow,
straightforward resolution, but it's kind of a unique parcel, as they discussed at the public hearing.
I was just gonna.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Any comments?
I have
There
no
was
comment.
no neighbor comments or anything attached to the invitation, I believe.
I don't recall.
No.
President Freeze didn't come up either.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve as submitted?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
6-0.
Great.
Do we move on to meeting minutes
Yeah.
now?
Great. Yep.
Approval of minutes, November 27th, 2018, special meeting.
So I only had one quick comment. If you could just add the word Vice Chairman O'Vane, well, I guess it already says special meeting, but I was just gonna say open the special meeting at 7:30. Just to make it clear, it's because it gets confusing later.
Special meeting.
But I don't have any other comments because I missed the special meeting.
You cut anything in, right?
No, I
I'm sure you
came during
watched.
the real meeting.
Okay, it's special meeting in front of the other meeting.
I have no comment.
No comments.
All right. Anybody else? No? So can I get a motion to approve the minutes with that minor change?
Motion to approve as submitted, as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
5-0. John abstaining, wasn't present.
All right. And
So
then
with
the
one
last
minor change on the first, you got it? You got that?
special.
Joe?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, then I just asked you guys to throw in times that were more indicative of reality versus the
Yep,
being.
Fred's got it right here. He's
Yep,
gonna-
we made the changes to the resolution, changed the opening to the meeting from 8 o'clock to 9:25 PM.
Okay.
And then also noted your arrival at the meeting
Yeah,
at 9:58 PM on page
Oh, that's
2 of 7.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other changes? I didn't have
I
any.
have none, I have none.
All right.
The guy that knew that showed up.
Can I get a motion to approve with the Fred's changes?
I'll motion to.
Ms. Reba?
I'll second.
Jim Rand?
All in favor?
Yes.
6-0.
Great. You want to just give us a quick, because we're still waiting for Doug?
We're gonna wait 2 more minutes for Doug DeVesta. We'll do some other business, and then we'll have Yasik at least start the application.
Okay, oh, great. We
And
can at least
Joe
get going.
Canis can fill in, and then Doug can fill in.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question on something that was on the agenda that we didn't talk about?
Sure.
The first one, Pembroke?
Oh, Pemberton, yes, continuation to
Pemberton.
January 29th.
Right.
At the applicant's request. Bob Maslin called me earlier in the week, or late last
Yesterday?
week. I think it was late last week, and talked about the fact that Mike Galante was finalizing the report.
I
He
got
had
a
just
quick
gotten the
question.
report. And Bob is considering what to do with the application, changes, or how to respond to Mike, or what to do. And he said he would give me a call this week or next week to talk more about it.
My question is, does the condominium association have to have standing? Whoever the applicant is only owns 70% of the building.
We'll check on that question.
I think it's a legal question. I don't think he's allowed to do it without the condominiums. He could be the president of the condominium association. but
I'll
you have
bring it to
know-
Bob's
know what the
attention.
kind of docs say. Because I don't know if all the people in the building that are owners agree with him.
Yeah, because that would be helpful to clarify, rather than when he walks in next time is sending him back.
That'd
So-
be great. Yeah.
That's a great question.
Okay, great.
Pay you the big bucks.
Yeah.
And
That's what I do for a
calendar
living.
update, just quickly, and then we'll go to that.
Sure, our next meeting is not next Tuesday, it's next Wednesday, because Glenn Calder couldn't make it on Tuesday.
Somebody
So
have a
it's gonna be-
problem?
Jennifer does.
Okay.
So it's next Wednesday, the 16th.
Thank you.
It will be in the Mather Center, you may recall.
Yeah!
All the
Wow,
way
we
down.
really
Nice!
bumped down
You're
there, huh?
getting- It's the last room in the building.
We've had that a couple times.
So-
What do you mean, where is this?
You may recall for the town plan, a couple years ago, we met, when you go in the senior center,
We'll give you, we'll
when you
show
park down all the way at the Mather Center,
Yeah,
you just walk right through the front door.
but like the ground floor all the way down to the lower parking lot?
Yep. So you
Okay.
park.
It's like a
anywhere-
big lobby with a little stage? sort of?
No. We'll let you
My
know.
daughter like sang.
Don't
to
worry,
this years ago. Oh, okay.
We'll let you know. We'll show you.
You go in where the basketball gym is?
Okay.
Oh, that's not all the way down the bottom. That's at the bottom of this building.
Over there.
Right at the bottom, that's Mathers Center.
All right.
Right.
We'll be sure that you find it.
Yes.
I just want to move
Glenn will
on.
be here for about an hour next Wednesday, and then after Glenn, if Jeff McDougall has said that wants to come in, chat with the commission about, he's the surveyor with William Seymour Associates, talk to the commission a few minutes about surveying, what it's all about, how they do their, whatever it is, talk to you a little about some of the technical terms,
Little Q&A.
Q&A, kind of something informal.
So no applications, just
No
these two
applications.
information?
And maybe Fred might have 1 or 2 draft resolutions, so it will be, mostly those 2 will be the agenda.
Maybe, hopefully, another quick meeting.
Great.
All right, so Kevin, you want to go back to, we're going to reopen the public hearing now?
Yes, the last public hearing for 10 Holly Lane.
Public hearing, item number 2, coastal site plan review number 336, flood damage prevention application number 79A, landfilling and regrading application number 446, Jessee and Abigail Hord. I'm sorry, we're doing Holly Lane now, right?
Holly Lane, 10 Holly.
Sorry, my apologies. Number 3, flood damage prevention application number 387, landfilling and regrading application number 445. Brian and Daria Chase, 10 Holly Lane, proposal to raise the existing dwelling and to construct a new residence in generally the same location and regrade the yard to accommodate the new residence and perform site development activities within the irregulated area. The 1.19 acre subject property is located on the west side of Holly Lane, approximately 650 feet north of its intersection with Middlesex Road, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 9 as lot number 150 in the R1 zone.
You have in your packets the application materials. You also have a ZBA variance for lot width, which was granted by the ZBA a few months ago, and a memo from Rich Jacobson on behalf of the Environmental Protection Commission, noting that the EPC has closed their public hearing and is likely to approve the application tomorrow night at their meeting. There's wetlands in the backyard of the property. We've been to the property. They just demolished the house in November, December timeframe. You can see where the old house was. One of the new house is going in essentially the same location. The driveway will be moved from the southern part of the property to basically right near the north property line. The new house is entirely in the flood zone. The whole property's in the flood zone. And so the house will have to be elevated such that the first floor will be at least 1 foot above the base flood. The mechanical units will be at or above the flood levels. The town has hired Joe Canis, Ty and Bond, peer engineer, peer review, Doug DeVesta's engineering. Joe's written a memo. You have a copy of his memo. I'll leave it to Jacek Bigazinski, the architect, to fill in any details I may have left out.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I'm pretty much done. You actually gave a very good overview. Thank you very much. So yes, so we have, well, first of all, Jacek Bigazinski, PB Architects. Yes, so we have gotten the ZBA approval. It was the lot size and the lot width that we had to obtain a variance for, and almost done with EPC, which was, the hearing was a couple of weeks ago. So let me just take you through the project quickly, and then I can see if you have any questions or might be comments. I can see one neighbor here that I'm sure you're going to talk. So the blue that you see here is the old house. This is where the old house used to be, and you can see a little bit of an angle. We actually turned the house a little bit towards the road here. The red is the new house. You can see very similar footprint. They're pretty much the same. The wetlands, which are actually, this is the edge of the wetlands right here. You can see it's very, very close. So our main concern was obviously the wetlands and the flooding that does occur here on this part of the road, to keep the house as far away from the wetlands as possible and to minimize the flooding. Now, here you see the 100-year flood line, and here you see the 500. This is the 500 here. And these are the wetlands, the edge of the wetlands. So the flooding obviously is from the river, and the river is further out that way. So the idea for the house is to actually elevate it, and no basement. So we're going to fill what was there. There was partial basement there. We're going to fill that in. Here is a section and some elevations of the house that will give you an idea about that. So for the basement here, or the lower, well, it's not a basement, it's really just a crawl space. The way this would work is that the slab of this is at the same elevation as the adjacent grade. We are going to use smart vents, you know, they open and close in case water comes in, comes out. There are no mechanicals here. Everything is located above the floodplain. Here are the mechanicals, those are just the compressors. And then the actual mechanicals are going to be located up in the attic. Propane heated house. We're also going to install some solar panels, you know, make this house energy efficient and so on. So again, for this part here, this is just all can be flooded in and out. There are elevated decks. There is really...
Holly Lane's gonna be at the bottom, and
Yes, the High Lane is right here, yeah. So the house has a front porch. You know, many houses on that road have this kind of a look, you know, so we're trying to keep within the neighborhood, not too overbuilt, not too big. And, you know, again, so that front porch kind of helps to reduce the scale and the size of the house. And because of the lack of basement, obviously we went 2.5 story, so higher than the old house. But that was just, you know, the only way to sort of get some extra space by going up. And in terms of the wetlands, I think, you know, again, I'm not going to talk about the wetlands here, but I'm going to talk about the flood prevention. So there's no regrading. The only retention here in terms of water is here down the rain gardens, here on this side, on that side. And I know Joe Canas, who reviewed the plans, had some comments. Doug Divesta, who was the engineer, who is on his way over here, by the way. He had a hearing in Bridgewater. It was just finished. He just texted me. He said New Canaan, probably about 10 minutes
Hopefully
away from
we
here.
can beat 'em.
I apologize
Without
about that,
question.
but I think, you know, the paperwork that we have and any questions that you might have, I think, again, I'll let Joe Canas talk about the drainage and any questions and concerns he might have. And I know the the neighbors' questions and about the drainage, you know, and some of that which came up during our EPC hearing. And there were some questions about who's responsible for drainage across the road, under the road, and so on. So we're actually going to, or the builder, a Foxwood builder, who is going to do the project, you know, cleaning up. There is a drain pipe under the road that we would think that it's probably clogged up and creates some flooding. But from all the rains that we have seen, you know, lately, and again, I'll have the neighbor talk about that. You know, I was actually at the site during that crazy rain one day, and there was a little bit of puddling here in the front of our property, but, you know, that dissipated in a couple of days. So.
That's your question. Across the street, the Depps built a brand new house,
Mhm.
and there was a total tear down, I guess the wetlands of the river cuts through their house too. When you were there during the rain, did you see any issues with their house?
No, nobody.
It's a solid.
It's pretty very similar, yeah.
Very similar, directly across the street.
And we're actually we're building another house further up on 44 Holly Lane that did not require, it's out of floodplain, so we didn't have to do any flood prevention, but we have done some additional work in terms of drainage and so on. So anyway, what I'm saying is the house has been excavated the last couple of weeks, and with all that heavy rain and so on, yes, we had pumps, we had actually temporary retainage there, and no water in the basement so far. And that house has a full basement.
The Depps house?
No.
No,
he's
no,
talking
no,
about
that's
44.
44, which is.
I'm guessing.
Way up, that's way up.
Right.
The depths can't have a basement, they're in the
I
flood.
understand, but I'm guessing that you guys looked at this relative to the depths, because the depths.
There's a lot of similarities in terms of their location. They're both in the flood zone, and in fact, both Joe Canis and Doug DeVesta talked about the fact that for the Depp House across the street, I think it was at 11 Holly Lane,
Right.
the commission did not require on-site drainage because of the fact that in heavy rains, you don't want to store the water, and the fact that they are very low in the Stony Brook watershed. It's actually a tributary of the Stony Brook. So they're so far downstream that it wouldn't make sense to hold back the water. And I think Joe and Doug will talk about that next, that because of their location in the watershed and because they're in the flood zone,
You want to
Putting-
get rid of the water as quickly as possible
Right.
on a heavy rain event. You don't want to store it and then release it as the
flood waters
comes
come down from,
New
ironically, New
Canaan,
Canaan.
Yeah.
Didn't we also don't the depths, I mean, they're kind of sort of related, so I keep bringing it up, don't the depths, doesn't their water go into the wetlands?
If I recall, there's a little, I think it's a
Tributary,
creek
yeah.
that goes around
has a
the
bridge that goes over the
backyard
creek.
of the Depp's house, and it goes
Underneath.
underneath Holly Lane, which would be somewhere right, I don't know if that's exactly it, but that might be pretty close to the southern boundary of this property, and the water continues to flow. But it's
Yeah,
the
there-
same tributary, if you will.
Yeah, there is a culvert here and here on this side.
Yeah.
So this is where the pipe, the 30-inch RCP is going right through here, right? And there's kind of a stream here. This is why, actually, one of the reasons we moved the driveway over to the other side, because having this now a pervious surface will help for the water to sink down. And, it's not going to impede on the flow as this stream, which is, at this point, it's really just a little ditch in the ground. But it does.
It floods though.
It floods, yeah, and it spreads, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is to clean this up, maintain this in the best way we can, and allow the water to flow through here easily. But
So
because this is all that flat, again, we didn't,
It's on to Deb's house.
well, we have some retention here just with the rain gardens, but no Caltex, right?
Correct. So you're doing it in harmony with the success that they did across the street?
Okay.
Gotcha, thank you.
And that's something EPC also looked at, right?
EPC talked about that during their hearing, I believe.
Okay.
Maybe
Mr.
Joe
Chen?
Canis.
Good evening. For the record, Joseph Canis. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, also a certified floodplain manager. I'm a principal engineer with the firm of Ty & Bond. We were hired to we were retained by the town to review the stormwater and floodplain management aspects of this application. I had written an initial letter on November 26th and had a number of comments centered around the floodplain and the stormwater issues I had flagged at that time. And then the plans were revised, and I issued an updated letter on December 4th. And I'm happy to say that the applicant's engineer has addressed all our comments. Based on my review of the revisions, the application is consistent with the floodplain management requirements. It also meets the stormwater management requirements in Section 880.
And since we don't have the applicant's
Sure.
engineer, can you explain just the whole concept of not storing water on the property?
Sure. And one way to, yeah, right, it's because they're at the bottom of the Stony Brook watershed, or actually this little tributary area, you don't want to hold the water because you have this, imagine this pulse of water that comes down, makes its way down the watershed. It's kind of like, if you think about it in terms of traffic also, like if, I'm at the office, I work up in Shelton. If I leave at 4 o'clock, I can get home pretty quickly. But if I wait until 6 o'clock, I'm stuck in traffic because that pulse coming up from Lower Fairfield County slows everything down, right? So I can't move as quickly through. So it's the same kind of concept.
You want to get your water off as
Right.
quickly as possible
Exactly.
before the rush comes down. Okay, perfect.
And in terms of water quality, there are rain gardens on the site, and the purpose of that isn't necessarily to reduce flow rates. What that is really to improve the quality of the water that is discharged from the site. So it encourages some infiltration, but most of the treatment, because the soils here aren't that great, it's pretty wet soil, What you do get is biological uptake, and that does help renovate the water quality, and that's more of an EPC issue, but, it's certainly a good feature to have.
Great. Anybody else on the applicant? Okay.
Yes, just one question. Do you have Doug's revised plans, last dated, which Joe's referred to the revised plans, which are dated December 3rd, I believe? I just want to make sure you just have the copy, top right corner. That's it. You got it. If you look in the top right corner, it says December 3rd.
Yeah, we don't have those.
No, this one's 11, no.
Or that might be, Joe, the revision date on Doug's plans, 11/30?
Because this is second revision.
I-
This could be
I have December 3rd.
on the plan.
Just want to make sure we have the right,
All of our stuff's from October.
right.
No, the revision he's got the revision here.
Do you have it?
See, it does say for submission, general revisions, no. Okay, I have one more here.
I think it's the October 3rd.
You can go for it.
No, we got October.
Here he is, the man with the plan.
The man with the
You're
plan.
gonna save
Come on
us
up.
amazingly.
Yeah.
So we're looking for a December 3rd?
I think it's the latest revised plan that Joe just stood up and said, Doug revised the plan in response to my comments. This revised plan meets the flood requirements and addresses all my engineering comments. Doug, we were saying that that plan, I think, has a revision date of either November 30th or December 3rd. Just wanted to double check.
November 30th.
November 30th.
You got it, okay. Perfect.
Yay.
And the change on that, the final revisions you made on the plans to address Joe Canis's concerns.
Okay, for the record, Doug DeVesta, professional engineer. The changes that were in the plans, we made grab my pencil here. I think you were talking about the stockpile, move the stockpile in the area or secure it so it won't float or whatever, so we struck hay bales and staked hay bales and silt fence around it. We're going to put it back in here, but we originally had it in the back here, but EPC wanted it away from the wetlands, so we moved it up front there, and that was one of Joe's questions. Joe, you also asked a question regarding the compensation for the filling versus the
Yeah, to make sure I didn't,
Yeah, we're having a conversation by ourselves here. So.
Again, Joe Canis for the record. What I was talking about was compensatory storage to make sure that when he's filling in the floodplain, that he's taking an equal amount somewhere else out so that you're not
Making a big hill.
Right. And we did provide those calculations to Joe, and we also provided I did cross-section, so I had sent this to Joe, so this just shows the cross-sections and the volume calculations, so we took the compensatory filling and the storage for the area there. What else do we have here?
I don't know if we need a lot from you, so.
Oh, okay.
I think we covered a lot.
Did you talk about the flooding and all that flooding issues and all that stuff? And there's really no drainage calculations are made,
Correct.
detention systems and stuff like that.
Yeah,
just
we
water
understand
quality.
why, we
Right.
understand APC covered that. Yeah, so I think we're pretty good.
I think that was really the main issues that we talked about. And I think you probably mentioned that we had EPC hearing last month, and that was closed. I think tomorrow night they're going to vote on it.
Yep.
So.
And we got a letter in the record. Okay, so let me ask if there's anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak to this application. Come on up. Just if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, hi, I'm Heidi Sheldon, Sheldon. Thank you. And I live at 8 Holly Lane, and I came to the
Which way is that, if you wouldn't mind just pointing it?
Facing the house on the
South?
left.
Here, on this way.
south of us, right?
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah, south of us.
Like my neighbors, love box builders. But I'm here, I came to the EPC meeting to express my concern, or our concern, about the mitigation of the water that used to be held on the property, because the property did often flood in the flood area or the wetlands. I brought pictures and shared those. And I understand Joe's analogy that we want to get the water flowing and off the property. I just wanted to express my concern that it's flowing off the property and not on mine, because 8 Holly Lane has never experienced flooding. And one of the, I had 2 questions. One was that the plans that you brought before, and you were showing the water garden that's going to be between our house and 10 Holly Lane. I pointed out, I think that's over the culvert. And you said that it wasn't, and that I had asked, can we overlay the plans so we can make sure that the water garden, even though I know we're not trying to retain water, that it's going to work, because as that water runs off the property, I'm just curious, where is it supposed to go?
Okay, that's a good question.
So we are the engineers. Can
I was
you-
gonna say, that's a domestic
We're
question.
talking about,
Hold on, you take the mic if you're gonna talk, Jessica.
Drains here, down here.
yes.
Where's the rain garden?
We have a bioretention area along the south side here. The pipe goes from here to here, so we're just off of the, to the north of the pipe itself. And
Okay,
it's
so-
shallow, it's fairly shallow, our bioretention area. No, it's not a real deep system, so.
The rain garden.
The rain garden, bioretention rain garden, same thing.
Okay, it's just north of the,
Right. Pipe is going from here to here.
okay.
What's the diameter of the pipe?
I think it's a 30-inch RCP, corrugated reinforced concrete pipe. What's happening too is if you go out there, there's a lot of overgrowth on there, a lot of mesas and stuff like that, and it gets anything coming down, brush, sticks, whatever gets caught in there, and that does get clogged up, and it starts backing up. So at the EPC meeting, Rich basically gave us the okay to go in there and clean all the evasives out and clean the brushes out. I think it's basically on their property and our property, so a joint effort will be come in to try to clean that, keep that head wall, keep that pipe open, keep the water flowing, and I think that's part of the problem. And also, if you go on the east side of the pipe here, there's like a little delta being built of sand being washed through there, and it's pushing the water around. If that gets cleaned out, we're not sure if it's on the town property or if on the Deb's property over there. If that gets cleaned out, that keeps the water flowing as well, so.
Okay, and then who owns the pipe? Is it town, or?
I think we're not really sure, because there's no easement on here.
Okay.
So I assume it's the town's property, town's pipe, but we're not sure.
Okay.
So for argument's sake, it's 30 inches wide. It looks like it goes on an angle, right? So it's not 15 inches on yours and 15 inches on 10?
I don't think so. I think it's mostly all on 10.
Okay, so the bioretention thing is 32 inches north of the property line.
32 inches.
You said the pipe was 30 inches, right?
Well, the bioretention area,
But you said the pipe's 30 inches wide, and if it's all on your property, that means the bioretention has to start 32 inches.
You're just saying it's gotta be
yeah,
to the north.
yeah, it's to the north of the system, right?
Does that answer your question?
I'm curious why, with such a detailed plan, the culvert isn't drawn into the plan, because I think that then we'd have a record of it. I feel like right now it's just kind of, well, it's kind of there, it's there. But if, you're the professionals, if you're...
So it's a good question, why isn't the culvert written in the plan?
We're not professionals.
Well, again, we got the map came from the surveyors, and the surveyors never located it exactly for us. But again, it's a straight line. There's no.
You're not building it, it's
We're not
there.
building, it's there, it's existing, so,
Okay.
and it's under the ground.
Okay.
And I don't know if the surveyor can really get in there and see the actual head wall.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a catch basin there to pipe into.
And it's your professional opinion that the bioretention area is free and clear of that culvert?
Yes, because we did
You
do it.
can't put it there because you hit it.
We did the test hole
Okay.
right there.
Perfect.
And we didn't hit it, so.
So it's not where our bioretention is, because we did a test hole.
It's on the survey.
I think what I could,
The pipe is on the survey.
the pipe is on the survey.
There's a culvert right near the shared boundary between Miss Sheldon and the Chase property. It's, as Doug said, there's some overgrowth there, and you can see it. And what Miss Sheldon's saying is, I'm not quite sure whose property it's on. It might be on hers, it might be on theirs.
I'm sorry, can I
Yeah.
speak? The EPC said it was on the Chase property, and the Chase engineers, I don't know who it was, somebody said that they would clean it out, and it hasn't been cleaned out. And we can go back and look at the minutes for that, I guess. But
Okay.
the culvert is plugged with debris, and one of the reasons I came to the EPC was, hey, how do we clean it out? Do
Yeah,
they
no,
clean
we'll
it
make
out?
sure
Does
it's-
the town
if
clean it
this is
out?
approved, we'll make sure it's part of the resolution, it's cleaned out.
Okay, yeah, because,
And then Doug, one other.
One second, John. See, The pipe is shown on the plan. It's screened on there, and the inlet side is on our property.
Okay.
It's on the 10, here's the pipe right here. It says pipe is right, it says 30 right there.
yes.
And then the inlet is right there on our property, but it backs up onto your property here.
Right.
Okay? So again, looks like 10, my client's responsibility is to keep that clear.
Yeah.
But there may be some brush that may go over onto 8.
And the water's going northeast, right? It's going towards Good West? Yeah.
Yeah,
Crosses under
Stony
the
Brook.
street.
Yeah, it's going,
Stony Brook, right.
going
East.
east.
Going east,
Yeah.
correct.
So it enters on, I'm sorry, your name?
Miss Sheldon.
Heidi Sheldon.
It enters on Heidi's property and goes out on Weston's property.
Yes.
No. No,
That's what we
the
just said.
culvert, actually, the culvert
I'm talking about
entrance,
the water.
The water,
right?
the water.
Water goes,
the water comes from behind our property.
All the way through,
I
under the
think
street,
it's along
to the depths,
the
behind the
border
depths.
of our
right,
property.
it starts on your property, well, it starts up east and west of you, goes across your property, goes into our client's property, through our property, and then down towards the depths, and then out towards Stony Brook.
Perfect. Okay, so we, as part of our, if we were to approve this, as part of the resolution, make sure that that's cleaned and operational.
I have a related question. I don't know whether it's for you, Doug, or maybe for Jeremy, but you made some recommendations about maintenance so we approve this thing and the pipe gets cleared and so on and so forth. But 5 years from now, who's responsible for maintaining that and making sure that at that point it hasn't become plugged up or the dead plant material is in the bioretention and it ends up on this lady's property?
The owner would be responsible.
Well, but do we have some enforcement?
Yes, Jeremy.
Right, well, Doug has done the stormwater management, it's Appendix A, I think Jim's.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Right, so Doug has said that the number 3, maintenance measure 3, inspect that the bioretention areas keep weed-free and any dead plant material removed, and remove any sediment that may flow in the bioretention
So the
area.
enforcement effort is, just explain that to, if you could.
Right, our office would contact the property owner and say.
You come back and say, now I'm getting water, it's 5 years later, to your enforcement people.
Correct.
And
We would talk to the property owner about maintaining it.
As part of the, as per resolution.
If the culvert gets plugged, it gets plugged so it doesn't, it stays on Michelle's property. That's your first name, right? I'm sorry. Heidi. Jesus. So it stays on your property, so you want them to make sure that thing's clean, it's on their property.
It is,
Yeah,
it
we
is
got it.
already backing into, the creek is already flooding into our property, not dramatically, but enough to say, wow, this could be a problem, because the house that they're proposing is bigger, it's a bigger footprint, and it is shifting closer to that stream. So that was kind of the first, wow, that's interesting. And then the second, but there's a lot of mitigation going on here that I've had to educate myself on. I've been, my husband as well, and other neighbors. And again, just want to say for the record that we have not had flooding, and, you know, that would have been disclosed when we purchased the house, and we've never seen flooding on our property. But that property did have a problem with flooding.
Got
And
it.
so.
And the goal of our regulations is actually to, when projects like these occur, to actually improve conditions,
Exactly.
okay? So
Yeah.
you probably heard that at EPC.
Right, and so
Good.
one more thing I just wanted
Sure.
to say on the cleaning of the culvert, just because I couldn't jump in. It's not just debris, it's a concrete enforced, piece of the concrete has fallen and blocked the culvert as well. So I don't know, it might be a big project. I'm just saying that,
Okay.
you know, it's a little bit more than somebody going down there and pulling.
We'll ask
some-
the engineer if he's taking a look and if he's got any thoughts, but
You know, I haven't been able to see it completely because it has been so covered there, but if there is some debris in there, the contractor who, I think it's Fox Builders are going to be doing that, we'll have them get in there and work on cleaning it up.
They did say they will clean this up.
Yeah,
They haven't done
okay.
yet, you know, we don't have all the permits. We want to make sure that we have the approval before we proceed with any work, but I can tell you that there is going to be, if the culvert has to be replaced, the headway, you know, we'll do that, and we'll do it with the engineer's input and check with the staff.
Okay,
But,
perfect.
you know, we obviously don't want to do construction, you know, or maybe we'll check with the neighbor if that is partially on adjacent property, so we'll definitely get that cleaned up.
All right, perfect, thank you. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, anybody else out there want to comment on this? Any other questions from the commission? Seeing no other comments, can I get a motion to close this public hearing?
Move that we close it.
All in favor? Awesome, thank you. I think that we have no other business or anything, right?
Nothing else to add?
Okay, can I get a motion
believe,
to, oh, sorry, Fred.
What about the?
Doug, you can get back in your car.
We had deliberations on, or possible deliberations on 10 Holly and
Thank
3
you.
Siwanoy
Nice
as well.
catch. So does anybody have comments on, oh, this was 10 Holly, let's do this one. I just think the requirements, as we just heard in the concerns from the neighbor, that, you know, we put in a requirement for maintenance and, well,
Clean that
maintenance
thing
now
out.
and then ongoing maintenance, okay? But I think that's, everything else from EPC is pretty straightforward.
The stormwater management plan gets filed, right?
I'm sorry?
The stormwater management plan gets filed
Correct,
on the land
yes.
records.
Okay.
And that in there says they have to maintain the culvert and
The
pipe.
stormwater management plan doesn't get filed in the land records, but the maintenance plan and the notice of the plan will certainly get filed.
Perfect, so does that, if that could be part of the resolution, that'd be great. Any other comments on that one?
Just that they would say they would fix the culvert. if it's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, so I can never say it right.
Siwanoy.
Siwanoy. You know, again, sounds like the gate could be an issue, but that's not part of this application, so there's not gonna be a gate right now. Everything else was pretty much straightforward to me, so, any other comments?
Just so I don't forget, I really did back into his driveway.
Yeah.
There was no gate, so
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I was like, because, you
Yeah.
know, it's narrow.
Yeah.
And the
I did the
driveway's
same
narrow.
thing.
You did the same thing, okay.
I didn't back into his drive, I just went all the way up backwards.
So, being there no gate, it doesn't sound like there was anything else to really worry about. It's
There
pretty
were no
straightforward.
issues. As you note, one of the memos in your packet, the last memo was talking about, it was my memo dated December 21st, was FEMA's request to us that from now on, for any work in the flood zone, the commission require elevation certificates, which are slightly different than as-bills. As-bills are from a surveyor, which show where the thing ended up horizontally. But the advantage of an elevation certificate, which is also done by a surveyor, and Jeff McDougall will talk about this next week, is it specifically notes details such as flood vents, which an as-built survey doesn't show.
Ah, interesting.
So when FEMA talked to us about Norotan Bay, we said, yeah, here's all the as-bills, the proper vertical elevation.
But you have
or
no
elevation.
idea where the vents are or anything.
Right, and the gentleman from FEMA said, but where are the flood vents? We're like, oh, we're sure they're there, I'm sure they're there. And he said, no, where's the written documentation? An elevation certificate will tell you how many and their size.
What about like securing, propane tanks and that sort of thing? Is that part of it too?
We do get now certifications from engineers or architects that the propane tanks have been strapped down. that the air conditioning units or other mechanicals are at or above the flood elevation. But again, the elevation certificate gives even more information.
It's the next level of
It's the next level of detail. So it's kind of interesting to hear that he said, we're doing a pretty good job, but we're missing that extra piece of detail, which gives them the assurance that everything is shipshape.
Can it be the same engineer? I'm sorry, surveyor?
Yeah, he didn't care which surveyor, it doesn't matter. But whoever has to
just
go out
a separate
to
document.
check all those, it's a separate document. And in fact, the Norotan Yacht Club just brought theirs in.
Question, do we have a maintenance plan for those smart vents? Because those things rust and get stuck.
I don't know if there's a
Happens all the
maintenance
time.
plan, but certainly that's something that we can talk, I think
They're stainless
occasionally,
steel for the most part.
there's always a temptation, although we haven't seen it, in a big storm, water, the design of flood vents is for water to get into that space and to flow out. Well, if you're
People
putting.
close them.
Exactly,
People lock them
Steve. The-
closed.
The desire to keep your stuff dry sometimes is too overwhelming, and we've heard.
Lock the flood
Yeah,
pit.
they lock
You
them.
either lock it or
That's true.
remove it and put it. So we haven't seen that here, but we have heard stories about the desire to keep your stuff dry.
Jeremy and everyone, I was saying this memo of yours, I think, is very helpful on a couple of, one application that we denied that I can think of that I think you said is coming back to us, but their comments that they don't want anything unless it's a hardship in a
Right,
flood
that
zone
is,
is
in a
important.
case, the example for the ZBA was, one, the historic house was built at elevation 10, 100 years before flood regulations. Well, now the flood regulations require them to be at 15, but they just want to do a small addition to the house. And they don't want 6 steps up to get from their living room up to their kitchen, or 8 steps up, or 10 steps up. So the ZBA is like, yeah, that's kind of a unique circumstance, your house is really old. And the gentleman from FEMA, the staff person, said, well, in the case of the 1770 house, yeah,
That's
he
what I
could
was
accept the
thinking.
argument. The house in question, the one the ZBA granted that he had concern about, was a house built in the 50s. He's like, well,
It's not antique.
even though it was built,
Knock
it's still
that sucker
built.
down.
What
years
about,
before
what about,
flood
for
regulations.
example, the house in a subdivision? Remember, in a flood zone? There was a division,
25 Brookside?
right, would that sort of
That
be,
would
because
be-
one of my thoughts was not to build any more,
Right.
a new home ever in a
Right.
flood zone.
Right, in a case like that, we didn't get into that conversation, but he did talk about everything being properly designed. Certainly, a condition of that would be elevation certificate for any new structures, and then making sure all existing structures, additions and alterations, fully comply. Another example would be, sometimes when people are adding on, to get it fully compliant, you're eliminating your basement, or you're lifting all of your mechanicals. But sometimes people say, geez, I'm just doing a very small addition. Do I really have to eliminate a basement that may have never flooded?
Right.
And so the ZBA, sometimes in the past, said, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Well, the gentleman from FEMA is saying, well, our goal here is to get more people to comply with these flood regulations to minimize, just what you talked about, minimizing flood damage. So it's something we'll have to keep in mind.
Cool.
The ZBA is, certainly the burden's going to be on them, because they do see some unique circumstances that, geez, the house is 100 years old, you're going to make me lift the whole house? So they'll have to struggle with that a little bit, but certainly.
Yeah, made it
I
through
wanted to bring
Sandy,
this-
like.
Yeah,
Jane Raymond lived at her house. That was weird.
she did. And the house next door is still under construction.
Anything else?
Anything else, Fred? Nope, we'll see everyone next Wednesday.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, Bonnie, thank
Thank
you,
you.
TV 79.